Hello, welcome to another episode of The High Ground, powered by Premier Companies. Ryan, how are you today?
Well, I'm fine, like always. So I told you.
Another glorious day at Premier Ag.
There you go. That's going to be our standard answer from here on out. Another glorious day at Premier Ag.
Every day is a holiday and every meal's a feast at Premier Ag. Wow. Premier Companies.
Wow.
Putting it on thick.
There you go. Yeah. I'm
Hey,
sure
we have
get that thing.
another-
We get that edited out.
Our first day. We got another special guest in with us today in a Farm Legacy series.
Yeah.
With us today is Bryan Fischer, Fischer Farms. How you doing today, Bryan?
I'm doing great. I'm just trying to do as well as you guys are. I mean, every day's that's why I came, because I heard that's how it was every day down here.
Just to hang out.
We're not
with me,
hiring. No. Yeah, we're not hiring. But, I mean, you could volunteer.
So it's like the job I got now. I got you.
There you
Okay.
go.
All right.
There you go.
So no, thanks for having me.
Well, before we get started on all the important questions, we've got probably the hardest question, and that's the question of the day, Bryan. So, and Ryan came up with this one, so you can blame him.
I'll take credit for it.
I will be happy to blame him.
And our listeners now are waiting to hear what it is. But the question of the day is, if you had a remote control for your life, not your wife,
Okay.
but your life, if you had a remote control for your life, would you hit fast forward, pause, or rewind? Did I get that right, Ryan?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for your life.
For my life. Well, that's a more serious question than I've seen on here before a few times.
I know it. You've had some funny ones.
We were told you were a serious guy.
So, I've been accused of that before. That sounds like my kids, Dad. You're just too serious, Dad.
You can do wife if you want to, but Ryan and I will stick with life.
No, no, I don't have it. That does remind me one time though. I was, my wife and I were at a party, and it was like one of those. They have questions, and couples are supposed to ask each other, whatever.
How well do you know each other?
Something like that, right? And one of the questions was, I asked my wife, I had to ask her, how'd that go? How would your second husband be different
Oh my
than me?
gosh.
And without even thinking, she said he'd be a mute. I mean, without even thinking. And I thought, I think she thinks I talk too much. Right? Just maybe. So, but for today's question, I think pause. It's interesting because when I was thinking about it here, when I was talking about that, I think in my life most of the time, I probably subconsciously, you're thinking fast forward, right? There's something in your life that you're like, I'll be glad when this is over. I'll be glad when this is over. I'll be glad when this is over. Except that when you really think about it,
Then it's always over.
it's always over,
It's always over.
right? And my wife and I'll be glad when the kids are out of school and this and that. But I think pause. Would I have the same knowledge that I have today if I was going to rewind? Like if I went back 20 years, do I have today's knowledge?
Nope, you lose all that.
See, then no way. No way. No way would I rewind. I like where I'm at. I'm not, I'm still in good health, still young enough to do what I want to do. But some of those lessons you learn in life in your 20s and your 30s, they're hard.
They are.
I don't want to do that again.
They are.
So I think I'd pause.
Ryan?
I am the same. I like where I am. We're our kids are doing well and health is good and I feel like you. I'm still young enough. I feel pretty good and so yeah, pretty happy. And if I had to lose what I know today by rewinding, I certainly wouldn't do that. And occasionally when my knee hurts or something, I don't want to fast forward either. I'm not looking forward to that either. So I'm a pause. Sal? Now, you've already fast forward on beyond where we are, so I don't know. I'm anxious to hear what your age group says.
My age group. Oh my gosh. You're going to have to edit this, Ryan.
You'll have to rewind to get back where we are, so you can use that if you want.
Ooh, boy. But I tell you what, I will use rewind. And I'm in a great spot now too, but just had a lot of fun getting here today. And, it's no different. When you get to be my age, Ryan, you'll miss a lot of folks, right? But no, just had a lot of just wonderful life growing up. A lot of hard lessons. You're right. I don't like those again. I remember I got really smart when I hit my teenage years. Genius. And I couldn't believe how little my dad knew. And then after I got to about 28, 29, 20, he just kept getting, my dad kept
He
getting
learned a
smart.
lot, didn't he?
He kept getting smarter and smarter and smarter.
He learned a lot.
Yeah, I think I'd hit rewind on a few spots. It was just so much fun.
There you go. All right.
All right.
Well, we're doing the Farm Legacy Series, Bryan, and you are here because we want to shine a light on our customers. We want to shine a light on our members, and have positive advocates for agriculture. And obviously, we've geared this thing to not only our customers and our members, but also our non-farming communities as well. So, and we all have neighbors, and most farmers in today's world, with less than 1% of the population being farmers, most of your neighbors aren't farmers. So we want to talk about your operation, obviously, and just give a little better perspective on what you do as a farmer. I think most, probably all farmers wear that badge with pride, and this is our opportunity to talk about it a little bit. So, Fischers, what year did your farm start, and who started it?
My grandfather and grandmother bought the farm in 1933, middle of the Depression.
Wow.
Probably literally trying not to starve to death. So it was, I think it's 60 acres, and bought it off of a distant family, and had, I think, one child at the time. And then they started Fischer Seeds in 1938. That was kind of the time for that. Beck's, I think, started about the same time. Pioneer, I mean, all those companies were starting about that time. You know, that's when we were learning how to make seed corn, right? And so my grandfather had a bit of a claim to fame. He was the world corn king 6 times. After he won it the 6th time, they banned him and made him a judge. And so in those days, you would find the best 10-ear sample. They had these wooden trays, and you'd find the best 10 ears in your field, and then you would take it to this competition. And my dad will tell the story that when he was a kid, the dining room table, the end tables, anything in the house that could hold something had ears of corn all over it, you know, because that's just what they did. And so of an evening, my grandfather would walk the fields just trying to find those 10 ears. And the reason they made him a judge was he actually found somebody that was cheating. One year he could tell by the eye. So that was kind of his thing. I think he probably got a lot of enjoyment from that. He had to quit school in 6th grade because his mother died in childbirth with what would have been a younger sibling, and his dad was in a wheelchair. So hard living, but was a farmer.
Wow.
My grandmother was probably the more progressive business type. She probably really helped a lot with the seed business. You know, it was that time when she probably did the stuff in the office, and Grandpa was working out in the field. And in today's world, I would guess she would be a businesswoman. But in the 1930s and 40s, it was a different time. So that's how we got our start. They raised seed corn, and then in I think about 1970, my dad. I tell the story when people are taking tours up there that it used to be a milking barn, and that's where we clean some soybeans now. And somehow, Dad wanted to convince Grandpa that we had a corn house, but he wanted to convince him that we needed to clean soybeans too. And I can't imagine how that conversation would have went, that we didn't need the cows, that we need to clean soybeans. My grandfather died when I was 6, but I didn't know him well, but I did realize that he was not much for negotiation, even at a young age.
Pretty serious guy.
Pretty serious fella. So I would guess my grandmother got that done, got the negotiations done one way or the other, right? And so
Probably had a way of doing that.
Probably had a way of doing that. Yeah. You like sleeping inside? Oh, okay. All right, that's what we're going to do then. So started cleaning soybeans and wheat, and that's kind of where Fischer Seeds got its birth in the early 70s. So we sold seed corn, seed beans, wheat to, I usually say, customers that you can't drive off with a stick. There's a local mom and pop place, didn't have a sales arm or a marketing arm, or, you sold locally to, we're in Shelby County and then the counties around that. So did that for a long time. And then with Monsanto and traits, that kind of complicated all that a little bit. It was hard for a really small place to deal with that. We had farm was growing a little bit, still selling some seed,
It's kind of the mid '90s.
Yeah, probably early. Yeah, and a little before that, we were looking for a way to get a little more cash flow, and we didn't have enough seed sales to fill all our acres. So somebody had asked my dad. They said, "What do you think about raising some food grade corn?" And at the time, it was there was a place that was going to make corn chips, and they wanted a little bit different kind of corn. Which corn chips probably in the late '80s not quite as popular as they are today. And they said if you could raise this corn, always looking for some way to value add, something to do more. So we started raising yellow corn, and we would send it to a place that would make corn chips out of it. Then a few years later, somebody said, "You want to raise some white corn? What have you ever heard about white corn?" I remember Dad telling a story. He says, "Well, I've heard that it won't yield, it won't stand, and it won't dry." And they said, "Well, you want to try some?" And he's like, "Yeah, sounds like a good idea."
Yeah, why not?
Why not? So we'll try that, right? So then we started raising white corn, and so started raising food grade corn in the '80s and '90s. This time, the seed was kind of obvious that wasn't going to be our main focus of raising seed corn. So there's kind of three parts to our company now. I always kind of put my hands together, my fingers together, and I say they're separate like your fingers, but they're together like my hands are folded now. The one is we farm, and when you drive around the Midwest, I hired a few people yesterday, and they're not from a farming background at all. So they have no idea what we do, but they want to get into ag. And they're like, "So, we're talking about the business." And I said, "Well, when you drive through the Midwest and you see field after field after field after field after field of corn," I said, "A lot of that's going to an ethanol plant or to feed an animal." I said, "None of our corn goes for that. So it's all food grade corn. It's going to end up on your plate, but it's not sweet corn. It's the corn they make corn chips, tortillas, cereal, bourbon, grits, meal, stuff like that." And we raise white corn, raise yellow corn. We have non-GMO, we have GMO. So there's a lot of that. So that's what we raise on our farms, corn. And then the soybeans are either seed beans or food grade soybeans. The food grade soybeans are non-GMO, and we'll end up exporting those to Japan for mostly tofu, but some soy sauce as well. And so that's kind of what our farms are. Then the food grade side is we have a soybean tower and a corn tower where we run this corn. If when a farmer harvests corn, it's got chipped and broken kernels, it's got cobs, it's got leaves, it's got an occasional mud ball, it's got a bolt in it, it's got a piece of glass. Stuff ends up in there, And so we run it through machines that takes all that out, but then you can sell it to somebody that's going to put it in a pot and make it into corn chips or cereal or whatnot. And then we have a soybean tower that pretty much does the same thing, runs it through these machinery to do that, and then we'll package it up. Most of our corn is domestic business. We do export to Japan, Korea, Costa Rica. Last year we did a bunch to Egypt, some different one-offs. And then the soybeans is kind of backwards of that. It's mostly export with a little bit of domestic. And that's our what we call Fischer food grade. And then Fischer Seeds, we have a soybean tower where we bag soybean seed. So growers from mostly around the state, but a little bit of Ohio too, and Kentucky will haul in, and we bag for a large seed company. So that's what we do.
So how do you package the beans? What package size for export or whatever? How do they leave your farm? How does this stuff leave your farm?
In shipping containers. So the most of it leaves in 1 metric ton sacks. So those just look like mini bulk bags that a farmer would get his seed in. So 1 metric ton's 2,204 pounds. So we'll put 20 of those on a shipping container and ship them back over there. Some of them in bulk. We don't do a lot of small bags anymore because we used to have riots at work when we would ask people to stack 67-pound bags. They didn't want to do
Can't
that.
imagine.
Yeah, I don't want or we could just put them in these bigger ones and we'll lift them up with forklifts. So let's go with that.
So everybody stood to that side of the line.
Over here. So that's how they leave. We get the shipping containers from usually Cincinnati or Indianapolis and send them back. So we're an accidental exporter, I like to say. We had no idea how to do that. And through a series of events, we started cleaning food grade soybeans. We built a new soybean tower. And the old one, which is in this milking barn, if you'll remember, so to speak, we weren't going to use it, but we were just trying to figure out how to use the new tower. And so for a year or two, it sat empty, I guess. And somebody called and was kind of in a pickle and said, "Would you clean some food grade soybeans for me? I need to export these to Japan, and would you clean them for me?" I said, "Yeah, we know how to do that." So we did it, and then that, it's kind of like when you volunteer at church, if you don't screw it up too bad, then they ask you to do it again.
Yeah, for life.
Yeah, for life. Yeah. So then the next year, he's like, "You want to do that again?" And then it kind of kept going, and then we met a few Japanese customers and kind of just started from there. So now it's kind of been growing here the last few years. It started off as I wanted just to learn about it, but then I have a really hard time telling anybody no, customers no, especially. I remember the first seed customer we had.
That's why I knew he'd be on here.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah. Like I said,
We got the low-hanging fruit.
Yeah.
It'll get harder from here.
Yes.
So I remember one of the first seed customers we had, he said, "Now, do you mind putting in this package type?" And I said, "Sir, I'll put them in Dixie cups as if you'll pay me for it." I said, "It doesn't matter to me." I just remember how hard it was to get business at the beginning, So we had a couple Japanese companies that we weren't doing the exporting. Like, "So you can export, right?" I'm like, "Sure, we can do that." And then when they leave, you're like, "How are we going to
I don't even know how to get them off the parking lot.
Yeah, I have no idea how we're going to do that. So we figured it out a little bit. We're learning, and we started exporting on our own in the middle of COVID, which added to the excitement.
well.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was cool. No containers coming over; they're just shipping them right back. So that was fun. But yeah, that's how they get over there.
I've seen, and that's neat that you put them in totes, but I've been at different grain facilities over in Ohio where I see them and they're exporting and it's just bulk and they're blowing it into the containers. You don't do a lot of that. It's some of it.
Some, but mostly not.
Okay.
No. And then most of the ones we put in bulk will actually have a liner in the container. It looks like a great big bulk bag that's the entire size of the container. So we'll do that. But most of the customers that we have want them in sacks.
Brian, is it, I never, we think about when you go through the processing part, you would think you would take that somewhere else to do the processing, but you made the investment locally to do it right there. That's pretty unique, isn't it? I wouldn't think that a lot of folks would be where it would come right from the farm. They'd usually take it somewhere and then it would be cleaned and exported from there.
It was a natural fit after cleaning seed. So when we were a seed business, the process that you put seed corn through is very similar process as cleaning grain. So that's why it was a fit for
Makes
us.
sense.
So that's how we got at the time. When you're trying to get started, when you're cleaning seed and you're not doing a lot, you're cleaning corn seed. We'd maybe clean it 3 or 4 months a year, right? So you're like, be nice to do something the other 8 months a year too, right? And so that's how we started cleaning food grade corn. We thought we actually ran it through the seed corn tower originally, and we cleaned corn through there, and that's kind of how we got our start. So it's the same process, and it's the same process on the soybeans. Really, I mean, obviously you're not treating the ones that you're sending off for food, but other than that, it's the same process. The only thing that's different. Food grade soybeans and corn, you're going to have destoners, so that they're taking little rocks out, which is remarkable how many are in a bin. You just wouldn't think it, but they are. And then magnets. And then there's metal detectors in some of them. So that's kind of the newest thing we've got, where we're running through metal detectors to get, aluminum and stuff that won't stick to a magnet. So
Neat.
Yeah.
So seed, you're in the seed business, but somebody might be wondering, like myself, what's the difference between food grade seed stock and commercial like feed grade? So a soybean is going out in the field. We grow an enlist bean out in the field, and that gets sold for biodiesel or hog feed or whatever. Where does your seed stock come from? We buy that from Monsanto or Bayer or whoever. So is that a different seed that goes to food grade?
For food grade, I'll start with corn. If you drive down the road, you can't tell the difference between food grade corn and corn that's going to go to Poet.
Okay.
You can't tell the difference. If you put it in your hand, if you had a trained eye, you might be able to tell the difference. It usually has a higher test weight, called hard endosperm corn. It just works better for that. You can make food products out of the other corn. It just doesn't work as well, and their yield isn't as high. So they won't get as many corn chips, or they won't get as much cereal. They won't get, so the yield's not quite as well. But so we raise special hybrids that most of the seed companies sell. And then soybeans, the food grade soybeans are all non-GMO. So that's the big difference there.
Okay.
That's the stumbling block to get most growers right there. As you know, we're going back to pre-Roundup days and raising non-GMO beans.
Yep.
Okay.
Change gears a minute. Other family members in the operation.
Yeah.
I can imagine that as it's expanded since 1933, that it's got more family members. So who all's involved and what are their responsibilities?
Well, my dad still works. He has slowed down. He probably only works 60 hours a week instead of 80 now. Which
Somebody's got to run the place.
I know. Which I always tell Dad. I'm
Wonder
like,
when them boys are going to show up to work.
I hope he works till he's 100 because he's great help and it's hard to find good help. So Dad is still heavily involved. My dad is truly the person. A lot of people say this, but this is him. His vocation is his vacation. He loves what he does. Loves
What a
it.
blessing.
Yeah, he loves it, and I know this summer he said we were talking about vacation, and he actually was talking to one of our employees, and he said, "Why would anybody go on vacation when you can do this every day?" And he was serious when he was saying it. He loves it. And I love my job, but he takes it to another level. So he loves it. He's great help, and he's been there the whole time, and is the driving force behind our company. He's done a great job building it. So then my brother works there. He's a couple years younger than me. Brad, for the most part, handles the food grade corn side, and then I handle the seed beans and the food grade soybean side. And then my sister just started working there. My wife always says that however long I say something is, it's been twice that long. So I guess she's been I'm thinking she's worked there a year and a half, so it's probably been 3 years.
Okay.
Or 5.
or 5 or something like that. So she worked in the hospital industry for 25 years, and then we were needing some help, and she was looking for a change, so she works there now. She handles, I guess I didn't talk about that. We bought a facility in Rush County. We needed to load rail cars, and we have never done that before, didn't know anything about the railroad, so we bought a railroad site, and we're loading rail cars and sending food-grade corn to different customers that want it by rail. And so she loads the cars, she handles all of that. So she's our railroad tycoon.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, good. That's it for family?
That's it for family. Let's see. Yeah, that's it.
Okay. How many employees total?
30, 35, somewhere in there.
Okay.
So, yeah, I don't know.
Are they limited to the seed production or the actual processing piece, or do you have hired hands on the farm as well?
Sure.
I mean, they're all. And do they switch jobs? Do you hire somebody and tell them that the fine print's where your job description is? Is that what you do?
What I normally say is, the great part about working here is there's a lot of variety.
Yeah.
And one of the bad things about working here is there's a lot of variety. There are people that are, these people are usually more on the farm. These people are usually more in the soybean tower. But then, it's a farm.
Right.
There's different things to do every day. And so that's been really good for people that like variety. But I handle a lot of the hiring, and I really try to talk about that. And I think I've learned a lot of lessons on that. I didn't do that right at the beginning. I like variety, but some people don't.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
When you show
That
up
is
every
true.
day and you don't know what you're doing, or you got, so I've probably lost an employer too because I put them in a spot that I shouldn't have, where they needed a little more routine. So now with the soybean towers and the corn tower, that work is a little more routine. So we'll try to fit people where's best for them. But
That's good counsel for us too, because we like to, we may be barking up the wrong tree because we the same way. We're like, oh, we got lots of variety here, and there are those that would rather have it kind of a more predictable day at work.
I think so.
Yeah.
That's been a lesson I've learned in the last 6 months. I used to switch people around back in the soybean tower on different jobs. You can do this for the morning, or we'll switch every 2 hours, because I didn't like doing the same thing. And now I've completely went 180 on that. And now we're sticking people more in the same, and they seem happier, and mistakes are less. So I think maybe there's a fine line between variety and predictability.
Yeah, you had the names on a whiteboard at one time. I was in your office, and everybody's kind of areas of responsibility for the next 30 days, and had them so it was a whiteboard, so you could move, people could move around. So
Yep.
that's pretty neat.
That same whiteboard's still there.
Is that right?
Nice. So you've already told us how much you've changed and diversified and moved. So what's your operation look like in 5 years?
Whew. Well, Harold here, he's a strategy guy. And I always feel like I'm bad at that. I always feel like I'm trying to get through the next 5 minutes.
I agree.
I'm like, man, I don't know.
If you say tactician, it sounds better.
Is that better? I need a better word. I always feel like, well, I'm putting out today's fires, and tomorrow we'll put out tomorrow's fires.
Yeah.
The first 20 years that I worked there, or 25, I guess it is now, the thing I was not most worried about, I used to think, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? How am I going to get business? Well, how's this going to work? And now we've kind of figured that out a little bit. And I mean that humbly. I'm not saying that, but now it's who's going to help us do it. So I think we have a tremendous opportunity to grow over the next 5 years if we can figure out how to hire people effectively to help us do that. And that's been a lot better the last 2 or 3 months. But as you guys probably know, the last 3 or 4 years, that's been kind of tough.
Yeah.
That's been kind of tough. So we've tried to change several things, and I think some of them are working. Tremendous opportunity to grow for all the terrible stuff you hear on the news. It's still the greatest country in the world with a whole lot of opportunity to have a really successful business.
If you work hard and take the opportunities when they come around, whether it's a railroad spur, a rail spur, or whatever it is, you've got to be willing to see the need and take advantage of it.
Yeah. Take the risk. And I think most of the things we've done that have been the most rewarding were the scariest to do. You had to take a risk, and you weren't exactly sure if it was going to work out, but it usually does if you keep grinding.
So you're involved outside of your farm and other organizations and stuff. So you sort of have a perspective, a 360 perspective on agriculture. You're a good advocate for ag and a good person to talk to. So what's your largest obstacle that you see in agriculture right now? What is out there that is a stumbling block for all ag?
Misinformation.
Okay.
Which I guess probably means you guys are going to have a job for a long time doing this, right? Getting the right information out there. I hadn't made that connection until I just said it, but I think misinformation. Somebody told me, I don't know if I read this or somebody told me this, but they said that when they do studies, that the consumer likes farmers but doesn't like farming. I think that's really interesting. I don't think most people understand what's going on out there. And I guess that's what you guys are trying to do, right? So I think misinformation, now we're still going to keep farming because people are still going to keep eating. But I think they can make it harder on us.
They're trying.
They're
certainly trying. So regulation is, for certain.
Well, and regulation's tough because whenever we don't like the regulation, I'm speaking farming as an industry, right? Or as a group of farmers, well, we don't, we need to do it this way, and this shouldn't be, and we don't want that regulation, and we want you to get rid of that, right? And then when they say, then the consumer will say, well, we don't think that Roundup is safe. And we'll say, well, we have regulation for this, and we've had all these people review this, and this is great. So on one hand, we'll talk about how we don't like regulation, and on the other hand, we'll talk about how we do like it, except the kicker is both of those things are accurate. And I think that's really hard to deal with. And I think now it seems like the regulation is driven by the narrative that wants to be told by whoever's in power or whoever's working there. And there's a drastically different message being taught to this generation than was before. I'll butcher this quote. Did you guys ever watch that John Adams miniseries? It was on HBO 5 or 6 years ago.
I haven't.
No.
Cooper's probably seen it, I bet. He's a political guy.
He is.
Adams is with the French. And so he's over there and he's trying to get support, right? Because they're trying to go against the English and they don't have any money and don't know how to do it. And Adams is kind of a serious kind of fella, and the French are not serious at all, right? I can't remember if that's the queen he's with or somebody. And they're all having a good time drinking wine and this and that. And so the queen looks over and she says, well, Mr. Adams, did you go to the opera last night? And he's thinking like a lot of farmers would be like, no, I didn't go to the opera because I'm trying to figure out how to get this done so we can get back over there and try to save lives, right? But he knows he can't give that answer. And he says, I don't really have an ear for music. And they're not liking that because, they're thinking, what's wrong with you? And he says something like, I must study politics and war so that my children will have the right to study mathematics and philosophy. And my children will have to study commerce and navigation and agriculture so that their children have the right to study music and art and painting. And they love it, right? Because then it, kind of works pretty well for them. But I thought about that quote a lot, and I think that's kind of where we are in this country. Like I wondered if Adams really would have realized that if his kids study or his grandchildren study painting and music, they're going to be drastically different than he is. And I think that's where we're at a little bit. A lot of the agricultural policy was written in the 30s, right? We have agriculture is kind of a father's knows best industry. Like, we know what we're doing, leave us alone, right? We know what we're doing.
We've always done it.
We've always done it this way. Leave us alone, right? And for the most part, we do a really good job, right? And the point, when we wrote the policy, the point was, hey, you know what? We'd just soon not starve to death. So if you guys could raise more food for us, that would be great. And we've done a great job at that. But then it gets a little more complicated because those first problems that we were trying to solve, the generation that's growing up right now has never been aware of those problems to speak of. So they're trying to come at it from a completely different angle than when Adams was studying politics and war. And I think that's where we're struggling.
It kind of goes back to the hard times make strong people make easy times make weak people, and weak people make hard times.
Exactly the same thing. Yeah. Because on one hand, we do need regulation, and on the other hand, sometimes it's overregulated in areas because they're trying to drive the outcome that they want. We have both going on.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then I think as farmers, you keep your head down and you keep working when, maybe we ought to be getting in office more. Maybe we ought to be getting involved more. It's hard to complain about it when like the State House, Indiana State House. Jean Lysing, I think, is she's the chair of the Ag Committee in the Senate. And she'll talk a lot that there's 2 or 3 people in the entire State House that have an agricultural background. And then as farmers, we're like, well, I don't know why they're doing that. Oh, I can tell you why they're doing that. It's not because they're bad people or they hate agriculture. They don't know.
They don't know.
Be like if you took the 3 of us into a law firm and said, "What do you guys think we ought to do today?" Like, I don't know. I don't know about the law. I didn't. So I think that's. I may have taken off on a tangent from you there, but I think that's a little bit where we're
exactly
struggling.
what we're looking for.
That's exactly what we're looking for, and that's kind of the reason we started the whole podcast. The high ground to begin with was try to get the message out. And interestingly enough, we've got the next one we have lined up is kind of agriculture for novices. We talk in code, so we're going to discuss that. And then we've also got coming up here at the end of the month, United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization. We've got the deputy director of the Food and Agriculture Organization. So
that's great.
Yeah,
that's great.
So try to get more information out. That was tremendous. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you bet.
So let's jump back to the 30s and late 20s. Obviously, we're going to do a plug for cooperatives because we are a cooperative, and you're a member of a cooperative. So why are cooperatives important to you? Operation your size and your diversity, and obviously a lot of that stuff you're independently doing on your own, but a co-op's still obviously important to you. So why is that? What's important about a co-op to you?
Well, I think what you're doing right here is really important. And I know that's not exactly maybe the pat answer, but I try to think about, I got associated with this cooperative. It's probably going with the rule times 2 again. It's probably been.
Was it really 20 years?
I don't know, but it's been a while. I know. I was thinking that same thing. I was like, 20 years?
Really 20?
How is that possible? But probably 20 years ago, we used we did not use a co-op as much then as we do now. And I think a little bit of that, or maybe all of it, was I had never really thought about it. And then I got acquainted with Cooper. And he started explaining about a co-op and what it is and the value of that. And he's very articulate at that. And I've heard the talk 5 or 6 times, and I can still never do it quite as good as he does.
Nobody does.
It's great, right? And I thought, man, that guy is super passionate about this. And I love when somebody's passionate about something, you know. And I think his vision has been fantastic, which is why we're sitting in this room right now. And so for me, a co-op's important. I think a farmer-led, farmer-owned company. I mean, we just talked about, hey, farmers, you need to give your opinion, right? You need to go to the state house. Well, in the boardroom, there's full of farmers in there, right? And they're running the company.
Absolutely.
And that's great. I think that's what's fantastic about the co-op. What's fantastic about this co-op is, you know, I can buy Roundup from any co-op I want, and I can buy fertilizer from any co-op I want. But I think if we really believe that these problems we're talking about of advocacy and misinformation and talking to the consumer and yes, yes, our industry is, you know, father knows best, but I think we've showed we're willing to try to improve, then what we're doing right here, this I think differentiates Premier Ag. Because now you're showing value. I don't know how you put that on the bottom line, but it's real. It's real that we're advocating and we're explaining what we do. So many other industries do a great job of that. And I think agriculture inherently could even be the best at that, because how many times, I think you and I were talking about that, Ryan, about there's some guys on YouTube that they just videotape what they're doing on the farm, and it's incredibly successful. I mean, people want to know what we're doing. Well, let's use that to our advantage then, you know? And I think this co-op for me, I think the vision to do this is important. So I buy here because I like farmers. I like farmers telling Harold what to do.
There you go.
That's the best part.
Yeah, we like to sit back and watch that.
Everybody likes that, right?
That'd be a good podcast itself.
That would be a good podcast.
Yeah, we'll just do it. We'll just do a remote. Here, you tell us what Harold needs to be doing. This is your chance. So
I was on the board years ago, and you know, big farmers, small farmers, farmers. There's a lot of different opinions in there, and there are days when it's stressful, and I assume it's still the same way. Days when everybody doesn't agree, but that's when the best comes out, right? I think a big group of farmers, for the most part, if they can take their farmer hat off for a little bit and put their co-op hat on, bring their ideas, bring their passions, I think you get really good stuff. So I think that's what's powerful about a co-op.
Agreed.
All right.
So I guess my last question for you is what's the most important lesson you've learned as a farmer, as an advocate? What's the most important lesson you've learned in your career as it pertains to success?
I'm still hoping I'm going to learn the most important. I got a long ways to go yet.
What's an important one then?
It's a grind. You know, it's a grind. But if you get up every day and keep doing it, that's really cliche. But I think the persistence of continuing, and then this might be more of a me than everybody else, but man, don't be scared to try something new, and don't be scared to do something. My dad used to say, we're going to do something even if it's wrong, you know, and we've done that, you know, and we've done things that are wrong, you know, but what's the Navy SEAL, Jocko Willink?
Jocko Willink.
You guys ever seen that video where he talks about the problems in, you know, so every time somebody comes to him, so he's a Navy SEAL, for those that don't know, I think he was I wasn't in the military, but he's the leader of this certain group of Navy SEALs. This guy is...
The wrong side of him would be the wrong side to be on.
Yes. I mean, this guy is, you know, yeah. So in any event, whenever any of the people under his command would come to him and they'd say, you know, we got this problem. And they're talking about the problems, and they're like real problems. And he always says, good. And they come to good. This keeps going on. So finally, a little later in the video, this one young fellow comes to me. He's like, "Listen, I know what you're going to say, but we have this real problem." And he goes, "What do you think I'm going to say?" He says, "You're going to say good." And he said, "Why do you always say that?" And he goes, "Because there will be something good come out of this problem." And we really tried to. I saw that video for the first time like 2 months ago.
Yep.
And we have really tried to do that because, you do learn a whole lot more from a kick in the tail parts than you do a pat on the back. So I think for us, it's try new things. Don't be scared. There's a ton of opportunity out there. And if you keep working hard, it works out. It just does. I don't know why. It just does.
That's good. All right, Bryan, that's all I've got.
That's all I've got. Bryan, thanks so much for being here. I think this is great. We want to continue to shine a positive light on agriculture. It's going to take guys like you to help us do that. So your time was precious. I understand that. Your dad's probably at home looking at your time card going, he's not here, and he didn't clock out.
We always say that having a family business is like being married twice, so I don't imagine he's that worried about me being gone. Thank goodness we don't have to listen to him today.
Little time away.
Yeah. That works too.
All right. Well, we hope to have you back, and always a pleasure to see you. So that's another episode of The High Ground, powered by Premier Companies. Thank you all, and please like and subscribe.